once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of the ship was the Belly of Tea. The winds blew harder, bow deep down, oh blow me, bully boys blow. Soon may the bellman.
At last, we're going fishing. Good morning, and welcome back to another page in the Angler's Diary. Thanks for joining me. And I say, at last, it's been over a month since I was out fishing. Principally because I've had a bit of a break. We've been away for a bit of sun, sea, and ouzo to our happy place. So that's the main reason we've not been away. But then all sorts of practicalities got in the way, like COVID booster jabs and all sorts of things. So as I say, it's been over a month. And not only are we going fishing, but we're going pike fishing. This is my first pike session of the new season, and being a creature of habit, I'm going back down to the river to have my first go at seeing if I can catch a pike. The only possible blot on the horizon is the last 2 years I've had my first pike session on the river, and both times it's been a blank. So fingers crossed that third time lucky. I'll see you when we get there. Fishing. Absolutely glorious morning. Very nearly a touch of frost on the grass this morning. It was down to something like 4 degrees overnight. Back on the Spate River. The river has been up over the last couple of days. Came up over a metre and is now dropping back. Some of you may recognise this swim. Wait till I get out of the way. The first swim of the day is the swim that featured in my previous video, which very kindly provided me with a lovely barbel. And for most of that day I was sat staring at the river thinking, looks a bit pikey this swim as well. So I thought, rather than walk past it on my way somewhere else, I thought I'd give this a go. Tactics today, well, I haven't really made my mind up, but normally you'd fish an hour in a swim and move on, and I may end up doing that. But one of the other tactics that's recognised on this river is to pick a swim and bait it heavily, in the hope that the fish will come to you rather than the other way around. And that's, as I say, a recognised tactic on this river, particularly if you're fishing at the upstream end of an otherwise fairly inaccessible stretch. Well, this swim qualifies in that regard. So I'm going to sit for half an hour and try and make my mind up whether I'm going to stay here all day or leapfrog round a few swims. Anything exciting? You know what'll happen. I'll be back. Well, some activity. Quite a big bait, so let's see. bugger. Yeah, that's a shame. Put it back, you never know. So far so good. Well, there we go. Hopefully. Oh, don't snag me up in there. Yes, we go. Fantastic. First of the season. Need to get the unhooking mat out. Well, that's embarrassing. I got the unhooking mat out, like I said, and I lifted the net with the fish in it from the margins here, and obviously what's happened is it's unhooked itself and left the hooks in the net, and as soon as I lifted the net over the rim and away it went. Amateur hour really. Sorry about that. But at least that's broke me duck. So after that debacle, and while I'm rebaiting, I thought I might just show you the rig. To be honest, I've been watching some of the other YouTubing anglers outputs in the last week or so, and a lot of them are doing their first pike sessions, and a lot of them are explaining the sort of rigs they use, particularly those that fish rivers. Well, it occurred to me watching some of those that I do things a little bit differently, and so perhaps it's worth explaining how I rig things. Starting at the top and working down towards the hook trace, it starts with a couple of braid stops. I use two simply because 65-pound braid is fairly hard on braid stops when you keep having to move them up and down, and they cut through them quite badly. So by putting two on, then normally I'd have at least one remaining by the end of the session. Then completely traditionally, down to a bead. I like to use a fluorescent bead, eyesight being what it is, and it's always good to know where the bead is in relation to the float stops. And then the float, and this is where I tend to differ from others. Most people seem to use an inline sliding float. In fact, I use, and this one's a Fox Rage Predator float, I use a trolling float. Now, the reason I do that is that it helps when having to establish how deep the swim is with you, because if you keep any tension on the line, the float doesn't move. And so if it goes in and then you bring it back, you know exactly what the depth is in the swim in front of you, as long as you've got the float stops far enough up the line, it means that you can usually adjust the depth in one go, which is much better than having to mess around a few times, casting in, adjusting and so on. So that's probably the biggest difference that I use for my rigs. But then keeping going, perhaps there is a run ring which is there in case I need to put some heavier weights on. I mean, I have a selection of ounce and 2 ounce weights, and if the flow is such that you need to anchor the bait down, then that's the run ring, followed by a bead and then an up trace. I tend to use an up trace all the time on rivers, and in this instance, because I'm fishing fairly slack water, I have an inline 20 gram inline lead. Now a lot of people will say, well, the pike will feel the resistance of the lead and all the rest of it. But my belief, for what it's worth, is that when the pike picks up the bait, it also feels the lead at exactly the same time. And as long as there's no change in resistance, then I don't think this costs me any fish, to be honest. Well, in fact, I've just demonstrated it works quite well. So that's perhaps the other difference between the way I rig up and others do it. And then of course the usual 18-inch 2-foot hook trace, in this case size 4 barbless trebles. So slightly different, not massively different. If you have any thoughts on it, you can let me know what you think in the comments below. Well, that's 4 hours in this swim. And the crayfish have been enjoying themselves by the look of it. I said earlier I hadn't made my mind up whether to leapfrog around the swims or to sit tight and bait up. Well, in typical indecisive fashion, I've decided to do both. So, as I say, that's 4 hours here, 1 fish, 1 missed run. Now I'm going to find a new swim. Well, that's swim number 2, and it was a longer walk than I'd hoped, to be honest. Surprising number of the pegs are badly overgrown, obviously haven't been getting fished, my sort of bushwhacking days are probably behind me. However, found this swim, very user friendly, first priority, but also a really nice looking piece of water, a good proper back eddy just on the edge of the main flow, which is sort of down the middle here, and it's deep, very deep. I've had to deepen both rods from the previous swim, so it must be of the order of 15 feet deep, something like that. So thrown in a load of bait. I'm going to spend the rest of the day here. Just let's see if it can produce a fish for us. Oh, and by the way, as I was walking around, I came past my pal Dave, and he just had a small jack. So 2 blank savers, for which we'll always be grateful. We're in business. think the battery's gone in the other camera, and that's sod's law, isn't it? It's a nice fish. That'll be a double. I'll get it in the net. Yes, 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 yes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Well, fish number 2, lovely, and this one got its own back. Perfect. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. 2 nice fish. Meant I avoided starting the new season with with a blank, even if one of the fish did make a fool of me this morning. Good fun though. What's next? Well, probably more piking. I've got nothing arranged at the moment, but it's probably going to be more piking. Hope you'll be able to join me then. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.